壊せないくるるるくるるらガチョロ見つけて連れて行かれ世界にだんだん僕は Oh, didn't see you there. Uh, welcome back to another episode of How to Magic Spells. I'm your host, Dragantini Martini. Alright, so first off, we're gonna be working on, where we left off, I guess. Uh, yeah. Alright. I guess last episode we worked on multi-spells and spellology. So I guess this episode we could start working on spell chaining. So what spell chaining basically is multiple spells into one, which is what we started off with multi-spells yesterday. But we're gonna go a little bit more in depth into it with more. We're gonna talk about targeted multi-spells and then we're gonna work from there. This is the episode where most of you guys will find a little bit more helpful with, if you guys want to make like a normal Magic server. So, in this case, we're going to delete all of this because we don't really need this anymore. We're going to go to the bot, go to wiki. We can start with the combust spell. We already have it. Very good. Let's say, alright, so we're going to start with targeted multis. Targeted multi-spells. Where is that? Oh, it's right here in the spell list. You guys already know. You guys should know how to get to the wiki by now and start looking up spells. Basically, targeted multi-spells are like multi-spells, but they require a target, hence the word targeted. So, we're gonna go with we're gonna call this tutorial. What kind of spell should we make today? Let's see. I'm thinking we should do like a missile that does damage and sets the target on fire. Alright, cool. So in order to do that, we're gonna look for our projectile spell, our particle projectile, and find that's underneath the instant spell, right? Our particle projectile. Got that. And like always, because I'm lazy, I'm gonna copy this, and we're gonna go here. Cool. You know what? Let's go fancy with it. Let's make this controllable as well. Isn't that cool? So, I'm gonna go through everything here, and we're gonna go a little bit into effects today. So, change pitch. That would mean if it's, So if set to false, the projectile start location will set its pitch to 0. Not sure what it means because I don't really use it. A lot of these things I don't really use unless I need to, which makes me, not the best Magicspells configurator, but good enough in order to teach you guys the basics and stuff like that. So we have controllable, which basically makes the particle projectile controllable. Basically, we have the projectile velocity. Same thing with the velocity for the leaf spell, except this is a projectile now, so it's how fast the projectile will be going. Tick interval is how fast the spell will be casted if you have a certain set of options set to true. So it should be spell on hit during, which is where hit air during, right here. So this basically says how fast the spell should be casted at. If you don't know, or I'm basically wrong in sort of things, I'm very sorry. You can always double check on the wiki. Teach you guys how to use the wiki and stuff. Max distance is how far the projectile will go before disappearing. Special effect interval is how much do you want the effect to play throughout the trajectory of the projectile. We'll go into that a little bit sooner. And stop on hit entity, pretty self-explanatory. Do you want to stop the projectile when it hits an entity? We're going to set that to true. Stop on hit ground, we're going to set that to false because we don't want it to stop when it hits the ground. We want it to keep going until, you know, it reaches the max distance or it hits a entity. Relative offset is how is whenever the spell is casted, where do you want the particle projectile to be to start off from, relative to the player. Relative meaning where the player looks at. Absolute offset is the position of the player, and we'll see that a little bit sooner in the series. So now when we go down to effects, we have a certain configuration options. So for this video's sake, I'm going to explain to you what each hold up, 1, 2, 3, 4, what each effect, what each section means. So we start off with effects. We put a colon because this is a configuration section. We're going to start off with one single line. I use 8 spaces. You can use whatever as long as it's spaced out in between the configuration section. So you can't have it like this. You could do 2 spaces. You could do 4 spaces. I like doing 4 because it lets me, it's easier to read. After that, this is the full name. This is the effect, the name of the effect that you want to do. You could have multiple effects. This is the name to clarify which one is which. So in this case, we're going to rename this. You can rename this to anything. I'm going to call it 1 because that's what I do for all my effects. Oh, that's not good. Okay, there it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we go into configuration option after this. I go 4 spaces from this. This is another configure option, which means that you have to space again a certain amount. So now we have position. The position is basically where do you want the effect to be. If we put this to caster, the effect will pop off at the caster. Now since this isn't a targeted spell, we can't do targeted or target as the position. Instead, we want this to be a visible projectile made out of particles. So in that case, we use special. Now what special is, it pertains to a certain spell. The position special can vary depending on from spell to spell. So, but for a particle projectile, special meaning following the trajectory of the particle projectile. We have the effect, which is particles, because that's what we want. We want a projectile made of particles. So this is pretty default, pretty the same. Now we have particle name, which is redstone, and then we have the color. The color code for this, you can't put red, blue, anything like that. It's the hex color code. Now, those of you who are into computers know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't, I will give you a site right now. I'll probably link it unless I'm lazy or I forgot or something. But make sure this is the link right here that I use. And so you want to pick what color you want to do. I guess we'll do like a greenish color. That's a nice color. Oh no, my son. It's not good. Alright, this is a nice color right here. So now the hex color is basically this hashtag one, right? There's certain like rules to it, I guess. Hex is like it's like binary, but for colors and other stuff like that. In other words, you know. But for this sake, we're just gonna not gonna go in too deep with it. Just gonna copy that, paste that there. Horizontal spread. How big do you want it to be for this situation? We're gonna put it to 0.2. Why not? Horizontal spread is a horizontal, and how spread you want it to be on the horizontal plane. Vertical is on the vertical plane. The size of it is basically, yeah, I'm not sure, but I do know that the count should be 25, which is how many particles it should be. You guys can look it up on size if you do spell effects, but I usually use effect lib for my effects, which is a whole nother episode that I will be teaching you on. So we have that. So this should work. Alright, I'm gonna put this to day so you guys can see it better. This should work. Oh, would you look at that? Now you can control it with your crosshair. Ooh. Nice. Cool. Ooh. Okay, cool. So, what do we want to do? We want to look back on the wiki. Now, what do we want this to hit? We want this to hit non-players, but we don't want it to hit players. So how do we do that? Okay, well, would you look out here? Hit players, whether this projectile should hit players or whether the projectile should hit non-players. So in this case, we want it to hit non-players instead of players. Hit dash non-players, true. Hit dash players, false. I'm gonna check the defaults real quick to make sure it's not casting on the ground when it hits the ground. This is true. Okay, so the default is true. This is the defaults for each option. So if you don't define anything, it will result to the default. In this case, we don't want it to result to the default, so we're gonna set that to false. So now we did that. Okay, so now what? We want it to cast a spell at the end of it. So we're gonna create what spell we want to do. In this case, we wanted to do a combust and pain spell. Combust basically sets players on fire, and then pain just gives damage to the player, to the target. Sorry. All right, so we're gonna do the pain first. Okay, so we're gonna call this tutorial pain. Done. Like always, since this is a sub spell, we're gonna call helper dash spell and set that to true. We don't need this because it is a sub spell icon. We don't need that either. Description, we don't need that either. Cast item, we don't need that either. Cooldown, nope. Damage, we do need. Range, we don't need. Ignore armor. I'll set that to false. Ignore armor basically means if you're gonna ignore the armor, like do you want it to bypass? Do you want the pain? Do you want the damage to bypass the armor, so that it's always constant? We'll set that to true. Can target. We're gonna target monsters. Check plugins. We don't have any plugins to check, so we don't need to do that. STR. Nope, we don't need that either. Cool. Okay. Spell. Let's make sure we're recording. Okay, we are recording. That would suck. Alright, so we have tutorial pain. Link that through. Cool. So now what does this do? Alright, yeah, I don't think I explained the spell option, so I'll explain it again. Or explain it once, I don't know, I forgot. The spell basically does, it tells the particle projectile what to cast on the projectile hitting something. So in this case, we wanted to cast the pain spell. This spell right here, so we're gonna do that. Alright, so we're gonna MS reload, we're gonna time set it to night, take out a zombie. Alright, now we're gonna cast tutorial projectile. Oh, it pained them. It worked. Cool. But now we want to do a combust spell because we want it to set it on fire as well. Cool. So we have the combust spell right here. And copy this like always. Tutorial combust. Done. Name. Don't need that. Cooldown. We don't need that either. Range. We don't need that either. Fire text, we do need that. Okay, 400. We're gonna keep this the same. Prevent immunity, true. Target players, false. And then we're gonna target dash non dash players. If you're wondering where I got that from, this is a targeted spell as explained in episode 1. So we're gonna go to configuration. We're gonna go to spell configuration. Go to targeted. Shoot. Is it on here? There it is. Yeah. So this is where I'm getting it from. These are general spell options, meaning it can be applied to any spell. Any spell. Okay, but you gotta, use common sense. Okay, like if you wanna, if you're leaping, you don't want to target non-players unless you're casting from the mob, which we're not getting into that just yet. We'll get into that in later episodes. So we have that target dash non-players true check plugins str target. We don't need that. Tutorial combust. We have these two. So how do we link these two together so that it casts both at the same time on a hit? Well, we go back to the multi-spell. Ooh. But in this case, we want the targeted multi-spell because it's a targeted spell that we want to do it on. So we're going to copy that and we're going to go tutorial targeted multi. Done. Okay, we don't need this. This is a Right, forgot. Oops. Yeah, I put helper spawn in this too. Helper spell on this too. We're gonna put it on here as well because it's not a. It's a sub spell, and not a main spell. And I'm lagging a bit, but it's okay. Cooldown we don't need. Stare cost we don't need. Stop on fail. We don't want it to stop on fail. Basically what that means is if one spell fails, do you want to keep going down the list, or do you want to stop the whole spell together? We're going to put that to false. Require entity target. We do need that. Yeah, we do need that. Okay. We have this. So now we link these two together. We take this targeted multi-spell and we put it here. So now instead of casting one of these spells, it will cast both of them from a targeted multi. So now we have that. We're going to test it out now. Oh. Alright. See, tutorial projectile. Oops, I missed. Oops, I missed. Oh. It does damage and it combusts. Lucky day. Alright, so now what if you wanted to add more effects to it? Make it look fancier, you know what I mean? We can, let's see. Go to configuration and look at this, spell effects. Perfect. So now this tells you a short description on what it does, basically, how it does it. To look at all the things over here for what effects you want to do. We could do. We'll do a firework effect. Why not? Do a firework effect. We're gonna check. All right, so we're gonna copy this from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna do white for this. I already memorized the base, like black and white for color codes, so this should be fine. Fade colors. We're gonna do. Let's 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what I did here was I made a new effect. Make sure you keep the same spacing in between your first effect and the second effect, or else it won't register. You're gonna change the position to special because we want it to be aligned with the projectile. Effect fireworks. This is where you define what type of effect you want to do. So instead of particles we're doing fireworks. We're doing no flicker, so it doesn't flicker on and off. No trail. Okay. And we're just gonna do the colors, which is on hex as well. This is white, by the way. This is white, this is black. So fade colors is what you want the color to be when it fades out. So we're gonna want it to fade into black. So if we test this out. As you can see, it fades back to black. And done. As you can see, it still works, you know. Nice, cool. Alright, so let's make this a little bit more fancy, you know. Not really paying any mind to how this looks, by the way. I'm just, you know, trying to teach you guys how to do this stuff. Alright, so what I did here is I just copied this section, pasted it again. Make sure you don't have the same name for each effect, or else it won't work. Again, there's a lot of rules that we have to follow, and so that's why I number it 1, 2, 3. That way I could keep track easily. I basically copied this, pasted it here, and now I'm changing the color. Okay, cool. Alright, so let's see how this looks. Alright, you can't really see it that well, so I'm going to remove this for now. And let's reload again. And then look, there it is. Green and white, cool. So, yeah, that's like an introduction to effects. We'll go into like heavier, cooler effects in the next episode. But, yeah, I think we'll start doing like real stuff next episode. So, thank you guys for watching. Feel free to leave a like, you know. Offer still up, by the way. You know, you can always apply to my server if you guys never need one-on-one help. I'm always willing to teach new developers. As long as they code spells for my servers, I really don't care. So, Yeah, you guys have a good day. See you guys in the next episode. Peace out.